It's really really it's really really funny how life, can take a very weird turn. You know, this is a very spooky ass story that I'm still bringing myself to try to understand because it's extremely confusing for me. Like, I have placed myself in his shoes to try to somehow understand where or what perspective or what, I'm just trying so hard to understand what might have driven him to do what he did. And I still cannot find a good reason. Like, why? Why would you do that? Why? Okay, so August 13th, 2020. A call was put across by a worried lady by name Nico Watts, if I'm not mistaken. So she had put a call to the police stating that her friend, who she had dropped off earlier that day, had not been taking her calls or her messages. And it was so unlike her so-called friend, okay? Which is why she was putting a call across. Alright, so it wasn't too long after that the police met with her in front of her friend's place. And her friend's place had been locked, all doors were shut, and they had gone round the building to see, or they were going round the building to see if they would find any sign of, life. But they couldn't really get much because, all entrances were locked. So they had to stay out and put, calls across to persons they felt could give them consent, especially the police, all right, to go in. Now, this Miss Nicole Atkinson, if I'm not mistaken, her friend who she was worried about was called Shanann. And was married to a guy called Chris Watts, okay? They had two beautiful kids, two daughters actually, within the ages of, I think, 3 to 4. And it wasn't just Shanann that was missing. It also included the kids. Shanann had not been responding to her messages and her calls, which was so unlike her, according to Nicole. So while Nicole is out, in front of Shannon's apartment, still trying to make calls or still putting calls across to Shanann, but getting the same response. The policeman interrogated her, asking when last she saw Shanann, and she told the policeman that she was the one who had dropped Shanann off at her house around 2 a.m. and that was the last time she saw her. Okay, so the policeman then goes ahead to ask her if they could get in touch with the husband, which Nicole goes ahead to do. She puts a call across to the husband. Actually, she had already done so. She had already contacted the husband, telling him that Shanann had not been taking her calls nor messages, and she wondered if she was with him, but the husband said no, that he hadn't seen her, that he hadn't seen her, but he was on his way to the house. Okay, because like I said, they needed access into the house. Okay, so while they wait out there, Nicole also puts a call across to Shannon's parents, asking if they knew about her whereabouts, and they told her no. And she asked them if they knew the passcode to the garage gates. The mother was asking why they needed the passcode to the garage gates, and she told the mother that she was with a policeman and they needed access into the home so they can search. They needed both access and consent, so they can get into the home and search for Shanann and the kids. Okay, so while Shannon's mom is over the phone asking her husband if he knew the passcode to their garage gates, Chris Watts drives in. Chris Watts, who is Shannon's husband, drives in. Now, before we continue, I'm just gonna give you a brief bio on who Shanann Watts was. Okay, now Shanann was like a social media personality to a good extent. She was a lady who had this fan base on majorly Facebook. She usually went on there to give a little tour about her family, things that was happening in her life. And she did have a good fan base, if you ask me. She did have people who were very much interested in her vlogs. Back to Chris Watts. All right, so Chris drives in and he opens the house door, the front door, to the police, and they all go in. Now, on going in, they search everywhere. They go to the rooms, you know. They check the rooms, they check the home, and they realize that Shanann isn't there. And that is when the police starts to question Chris about Shanann. And Chris, actually the main question, or the first question the police asked Chris was when last he had seen Shanann. And Chris went on about saying the last time he saw her was I think he said the morning, the early that morning, something like that. And he left to work and he's just coming back. He hadn't seen her, something like that. I think that was what he said. Okay, and the police went on to ask if Shanann had, if she was, I think, epileptic, just to rule out the fact that she didn't slump somewhere, She wasn't epileptic, rather, and the only health condition she suffered recent or of late was, migraines. And it was something that just came, once in a while. That it was only just the last month that she had more migraines. And that was only because she had been in a humid environment since she traveled to North Carolina, across the country, to visit her family, her parents. And she had been taking a drug called Imitrex for it. So she didn't really have any complications. Okay? Now, mind you, Shanann had been diagnosed with lupus. Her bio, if I'm to give it just a very short bio on Shanann, I would say, according to her vlog, she said she didn't come from a family of wealth, so she had to work her ass off to get everything she owned. And her first major achievement was getting a house at the age of 25. That was like her major achievement, and that really made her proud of herself. Okay, she had been in a marriage, but it ended up in, an awful divorce, which really took to her negatively. It affected her so bad that, she lost weight and all of that. But things, started getting better, or things got better the moment she met Chris. It was like Chris brought back the light to her world, alright? This, mind you, this is according to her vlog, right? Because she wasn't present for all of this. This is just according to her vlog, right? So she said Chris brought back, hope and all of that to her. And yeah, I think she was diagnosed. She noticed at some point she started losing, a good amount of hair, that she had to go check what was really wrong with her. And she realized, or the doctor told her, that she had lupus. Okay, so she has been, treating herself, of lupus since then. But anyway, the point here is she was in a good relationship, or Chris, was a good relationship for her. All right. So now moving forward, The policeman continued to question Chris Watts. Okay, because they had actually checked the home and they realized that she had left her phone. Her phone was in there. There was no sign of, there was no sign of struggles. It's not like someone broke in or someone, there was no sign of struggle. Like the house was immaculately clean and arranged, right? So like, okay, then does it mean she just decided to, like, go out without telling anybody, go out, leave her, drop her phone behind, and just go out with the kids, or so nobody, like, it was the policeman was trying so hard to understand what would have warranted, or what was the scenario exactly. So they found her phone. They found that her phone was still at home, and it was her lifeline which was switched off. And Chris put it on, and after he put it on, all the messages that had been sent to her started coming in. Messages from him around, I think, past 1, down to past 7. He was basically telling her that she should asking where. I think he was basically telling her not to go anywhere without him, or telling her not to go anywhere with the kids, rather, without telling him. Okay, those were the messages that he sent to her. And then there were messages from Nicole asking where she was, if she was okay, yeah. So those were basically the messages that they found, or that she received. Okay, so meanwhile, before they had gotten into the house, while they were still outside waiting for Chris to come home, they had asked the neighbor if they had seen Shanann, but they said no, they hadn't seen her. The neighbor asked if everything was all right, and the police stated that they hadn't seen her. They were just wondering where she might have been. Okay, so the neighbor said no, they hadn't seen her. So while they were in, the police continued to interrogate Nico Watts, asking if he had any inkling of where she might have gone. Chris was unsure. He said he wasn't sure, and that even if he were to check, it would mean him using the same routes she would use, or using her daily routes, just to check to see if maybe he would just stumble upon her, right? That was what Chris Watts said to the police. So the police said, okay, no problem. Meanwhile, Chris had gone into their bedroom, and he found out that Shanann, or let me not say Shanann. He found out that the baby's blankets, that's the kids' blankets, because they had 2 daughters, were not there. And that was when he told the police that usually Shanann doesn't go anywhere with the kids without the blankets. So which means she took the blankets with her. Okay, which means probably this is now obviously looking like it was intentional. Okay, so the police said, okay, no problem. While they were still all there trying to figure out what might have happened, the police asked Chris to excuse him so he could speak with the neighbor who had already come in to join them in the search. So Chris excused himself. Obviously Nicole wasn't there as well, and that was when the neighbor said, okay, no, before Chris was asked to excuse himself, the neighbor had actually come in and told the police that, oh, there is a garage camera that he can use to check or track Shanann's movements. So he went there to do that. All right. He went to the screen, the camera screen, the monitoring screen, and it was the police, Chris, I think Nicole and the neighbor. Yeah. So they watched or they viewed the monitoring screen, and they only got a footage of Chris driving and parking by the side, and the next footage was, I think, Chris's van parked in the garage, right? So they had two footages. The first one was Chris driving and parking by the side, and Chris's van or Chris's truck, black truck, parked in the garage. So I think the police asked him why he parked by the side instead of inside the garage, and he said, okay, he said usually he parked his truck by the side, but they started having braking issues, people trying to break into his car, or someone had tried breaking into his car, which made him change the location, which was him parking in Shannon's car garage. All right, that was clear. So moving on, fast forwarding rather to when the police asked Chris to excuse himself so he could speak with the neighbor, which he did. When Chris was out of sight, the neighbor said he noticed some off behavior with Chris, that Chris was blabbing too much, and the police asked him to throw more light on what he meant by that. He said, and the neighbor said, that Chris usually is very subdued and quiet, but for some reason today he's talking too much and he is a little bit shaky. So the police was like, you know what, this is a very, very sensitive situation. So it's possible that he is quite tense because hello, his wife and kids are missing. So obviously someone who is or who has been quiet would want to would be shaken enough to talk a lot or talk about his concerns, or basically his concerns. So the policeman was just basically telling him that it's possible that it's just because he's really tensed that his wife and kids have gone missing. Okay, so the neighbor was like, okay, no problem. All right, so they did the last round of search, and the only things they got or they could get were the things they had gotten earlier, which was Shannon's phone still being at home, which was her lifeline that was switched off, the children's blankets gone, and yeah, that was just it. So the policeman decided, okay, fine, I'm just gonna leave my card with you. This is him talking to Chris Watts. I'm gonna leave my card with you. Call me if anything comes up, okay? And that was it for that scenario. Okay. Okay, before we move on to August 14, um I forgot to let you guys in on the fact that it wasn't only Shannon's phone that was discovered in the house. They also discovered that Shanann, not Shannon, Shanann. They also discovered that Shanann had, left her wedding ring on the nightstand, which, brought a lot of questions. Okay, so her phone, the kids' blankets, and her wedding ring. Her phone left behind, which was switched off. The kids' blanket, which was gone. And her wedding ring, which was left behind. Those were the major red flags that were found on August 13, when they searched the apartments for Shanann. Okay guys, I've already blended out my foundation. Alright, continuing. August 14, alright? So back at Chris Watts' house, reporters have been brought in to report the incidents, as Americans usually do. Dogs were also brought in, and everyone was asked to go out of Chris Watts' house so they could properly sniff out Shannon's scent and the kids' scent, so they could search for her or search for them. Meanwhile, there were some policemen who were, somewhere else sharing out, handbills, that had Shanann and the kids' pictures, asking people if they had seen them and all of that. They went from door to door asking, the neighbors around there if they had, come across Shanann or the kids. And most of the people, unfortunately, should I use the word unfortunately or fortunately? Unfortunately, because they know them, and that was like, a shock to them. Fortunately, in the sense that they knew them, so they could assist in helping the police find her. Right now, oh, that was I just got this. Okay, as I was saying, so some of the people they had asked said they knew her, right? But they hadn't seen her. Some didn't know her, okay? But majority actually knew Shanann because, like I said, she was a social media personality, She was a vlogger. It was only an old woman who said that she hadn't seen her, but she had seen a truck parked by her house previously. She had seen a truck that got parked by her house, but the truck didn't look like that of Chris Watts, because like I said, Chris Watts had a truck. But according to this old woman, she said the truck she saw was way smaller, or rather Chris Watts' truck was way smaller than the truck she saw that was parked at Shannon's house. Okay, so that was the only information they could get, from that. So meanwhile, back with Chris and one of the policemen. The police interrogated Chris and asked him, Chris Watts, if he had at some point, had a fight with Shanann. And he said no, it wasn't a fight or it wasn't an argument. It was more of an emotional conversation. That they had, an emotional conversation the previous night where he was telling her that, he wasn't really feeling the way he used to feel with her, something like that, and that he feels like, they needed to be apart. That sometimes, people needed to be apart from each other, so they could, properly get to know themselves better. That was what he said. I know it sounds crazy, but that was what he said. Okay. So the police said, okay, no problem. They went ahead to interrogate Nicole, Shannon's best friend. And they asked Nicole if Shanann had mentioned, any form of dispute between her and Chris. And she said, yeah, but like it was only like the second or third week where she mentioned that she had a misunderstanding with Chris's mom, because she and the kids had traveled to North Carolina. They had spent 6 weeks, prior to her disappearance. They had spent 6 weeks in North Carolina with, she had gone to visit her parents, so she just used the opportunity to, check up on her in-laws as well, which is Chris's parents. She said Shanann had complained to her that Cindy, who is Chris's mom, had tried to feed Cece. Oh, mind you, I haven't given you the names of her daughters. So she had 2 kids, which were both girls, by name Celeste, short for Cece, and Bella. All right. Now, she said that Cindy, who is Chris's mom, bought an ice cream, and that ice cream contained all the things Celeste or Cece was allergic to, and she, told her not to feed it to her daughter. All right. Now, this misunderstanding led to her contacting Chris via text message and letting him know that his mother had tried to give Celeste's ice cream, an ice cream that contained all the things Celeste was allergic to, and she had warned the mother not to try it or not to give it to her daughter. Okay. So yeah, Chris was questioned obviously about this, and he was like, yeah, that he was texted by Shanann that his mother was trying to feed their daughter with an ice cream that contained, things that Celeste was allergic to, and he had assured her via text that he was going to rectify it by calling his mother, and letting the mother know that that was wrong of her. Okay. Now, it was only there that he mentioned that it was only there that he mentioned that apparently it wasn't just a misunderstanding. Shanann and Cindy actually got into a fight, not a physical fight, more like a verbal fight that warranted Cindy to throw Shanann out of the house. Yeah. So she did that. Yeah, so that was what Chris had reported to the police officer pertaining to that information. So the interrogation continues, right, between the police officer, Chris Watts, Nicole, which is Shannon's best friend, and the police officer asked asked Chris Watts if or how he felt. The first question Chris was asked was how he felt about his wife's and kids' disappearance, and his response was, at first I was thinking she had just taken off to cool off, because when we first checked the house there was no sign of struggle and she had gone with the children's blankets. But now that it has gone past the day, I'm beginning to think otherwise. This was his response. Okay, now moving to Shanann was asked moving to Nicole was asked if Shanann had made any complaints about Chris, and she said that Shanann had said something about Chris not calling his kids, like I told you they had gone for a 6 weeks vacation in North Carolina, with Shanann had gone with her kids to North Carolina, visiting her parents, and it was a 6 weeks vacation. And she had mentioned to Nicole that Chris hadn't called the kids all through the while. Actually, Shanann and Chris's plan was, Shanann goes with the kids, stays with the kids for probably 5 weeks, and Chris meets up with them towards the end, and they spend the remaining days together, or the remaining week together, and he returns home. Now, according to Nicole, she mentioned that Shannon's via text, because obviously these are besties, so they were always texting each other, they were always texting. Nicole was the type to always text Shanann. Majority of their conversations were via text. So Shanann had told Nicole via text that basically Chris hadn't called the kids since she and the kids had arrived in North Carolina, and there was a text exchange between Shanann and Chris about that. where she sounded very furious via text, about, Chris not calling the kids ever since they got to North Carolina. And Chris via text was like, oh, that he's very sorry, he's been busy with work, but he was going to reach out, that he loves them, and I think Shannon's response was, fucking call your kids. Yeah. Nicole also mentioned that Shanann had mentioned that, Chris didn't usually give them this distance. Like, Chris wasn't the type of person to like give them such a distance, that the only time something similar happened to her, was when they after they newly got married, and that was only because Chris's parents didn't like Shanann, didn't like her. So this information was forwarded to Chris. This information was forwarded to Chris by the police officer, and he responded that that his parents, or his mother, he didn't say parents, he said his mother and sister didn't really like Shanann because it was basically because they felt she had taken him away from them. Okay, this was Chris's response to that. All right. So the police officer went on to ask him if he was cheating, if he had a girlfriend. And Chris said no, that he had never cheated on his wife. The police officer said, okay, the reason he's asking is he's seen a huge difference in physical attributes from, when he newly got married to Shanann, and right now that he was, in front of him. So mind you, Chris was a chubby looking guy back then, back when he newly got married to Shanann. He was, chubby, but with time he started working out, and according to him, he said he was 245 pounds and he reduced, to 180 pounds. So you can imagine the drastic change. Okay, he had a bodybuilder's physique, or he was built. So this was what caused the police officer to ask him that, and he went ahead to say no, that that he has never, actually, not like he hasn't, but he has never cheated on his wife, that he was a faithful husband, and that he only just decided to build himself. That is why he lost a whole lot of weight, but he has never cheated on his wife. Okay, so Chris was asked by his investigative officer by name Luke Apple, if I'm not mistaken, questions such as if he had ever cheated on his wife. He said no. If he was willing to go ahead to take a polygraph test, and Chris said yes, he was more than willing to take a polygraph test. Okay, meanwhile, by the corner, a lady called let me just try to get her name, Asian Lee, from another investigative department, had contacted Luke Apple, asking, just reconfirming that Chris Watts didn't have a girlfriend. She asked him if he had any idea whether or not Chris Watts had a girlfriend, and Luke Apple responded that Chris never indicated that he had a girlfriend, okay? And he never indicated that he was in, a relationship outside his marriage. Ajani also went ahead to ask same question, for Shanann, as she asked if Shanann probably also had a boyfriend that they didn't know of. And Luke Epo said, not that I know of as well. Okay. Meanwhile, moving back to like the very first day when the policeman went to his house to check, for Shanann, he was asked what Shanann did, and he responded with Shanann worked from the house. Shanann, worked from home, and she was, a direct sales agent for a company called Tribe, while he was an operator in an oil and gas company, I think by name Anadako, something like that. Okay, so yeah, that's just the basic. I just wanted you to have that in mind. Okay, that these two people actually had, jobs for themselves. All right. Okay, moving on to August 15. Okay, August 15, the day of the polygraph test. All right. First off, the interviewer. There are two interviewers there with Chris in an interrogation room. One interviewer is, the police, one from the police station. The other interviewer was, a lady who was to, run his polygraph examination on him. Now, the police interviewer asked Chris if, to just throw some light on what their conversation was like, pertaining to his emotion. He told the police officer that they had an emotional conversation. So the police officer asked him to delve, to throw more light into what they talked about, what that emotional conversation was like, because they needed more closure, right? And that was where Chris said he mentioned to Shanann that, things weren't really working out the way he wanted them to, and that was where he brought up his separation, and also brought up I think selling the house. Yeah. So after that, the polygraph examiner asked Chris if he was ready to, go ahead with his polygraph test, and he said yes. Okay, so he was set up for his polygraph test, and a couple of the questions that were asked were, is your name Christopher Watts? And he answered yes. His second question was, did you physically cause Shannon's disappearance? His answer was negative, no. Okay. His third question was, are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann? And his response was negative, no. Okay. His fourth question was, Oh yeah, before his fourth question, the interviewer asked him to, regulate his breathing, because his breathing rate was tampering with the apparatus. And he apologized. He quickly apologized and said, "Oh, yeah, that he's going to do that. Sorry, that he's just a little bit tensed. That he was actually, he didn't say he's a little bit tense. He said that he was trying to breathe, like he was trying to, but like he didn't want to do it, and it will, give a bad record for him. Like he didn't put it that way, but he just basically told the interviewer that he was just trying to release his breath because he had been holding his breath. Okay, so the interviewer was like, okay, please go ahead and release your breath, and then we can continue with this interrogation. Okay, and he did so, and they continued. Okay, so after that, the interviewer asked him, the fourth question actually was, before 2018, I had to write them down because there were so many questions, okay, and I didn't want to miss them. Okay, before 2018, did you ever say anything hurtful to Shanann? And Chris responded with a Chris responded with a yes first, and then a no. All right. The interviewer paused for some time before continuing her question. Okay. The next question was, do you know where Shanann is now? All right. And Chris responded with a no. All right. So that was the end of the question session. The interviewer walked out, took some minutes out, left the both interviewers rather left the interrogation room, leaving Christopher Watts, actually is his full name, behind, and going to just go through what they did. Meanwhile, while Chris was in there waiting for whatever results the polygraph interviewer had for him, the policemen were still taking their rounds of search. The newscasters were still broadcasting the news, and while some investigators back at the police station, were making their calls out to mutuals, people that knew Shanann, Chris, anyone they could get in contact with that probably knew anything. And that was when a certain lady called Nicole, this time around, not Nicole Atkinson. Hush, my God. Not Nicole, which was Shannon's best friend, but another Nicole. Now, this Nicole she wasn't brought in at first for interrogation. Apparently, she was called. I think a conversation was had with her. I'm not sure if it was via phone call or physically, because my source didn't really indicate, but a conversation anyway was had with her. And in that interrogation, she mentioned that she had met Chris, I think sometime around June at work, right? And that was where she knew, Chris. Now, the police officer went ahead to ask her if, another relationship surfaced outside the work relationship. And thank God she was truthful enough to say yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Meanwhile, Chris had been lying about not cheating on his wife. Right? Okay. Wow. Anyway, moving on. Okay, guys. I had to go and check for her surname. And yes, Nicole's surname is Kasenga. I'm gonna put it down so you see it. So, cause you know me, I don't know how to pronounce all these, fancy names. But yeah, I'm gonna put it down there. So yeah, Nicole Kasenga finally admitted to the police that they didn't only have a working relationship; they had more to that. Okay, and it was also at this point that through interrogation that Nicole Atkinson, who is Shannon's bestie, opened up and told them that Shanann has sent messages while she was still enjoying her vacation. And yeah, she had said in Shannon's message, I think this was the time, not even I think, this was the time Chris had finally traveled, gone over to be with them for the remaining week before finally coming back as a family, to Colorado, which they lived in. All right. So, Nicole Atkinson mentioned that Shanann sent her messages saying that when Chris came over to North Carolina to be with them for the last week, that she wasn't just getting the right vibe. She wasn't getting the vibe she used to get with Chris, in the sense that there was no lovey-dovey environment. Like in her text message to Nicole Atkinson, Shanann mentioned that Chris had been without sex. Like it's been 5 point how many weeks that they had been away from each other, that she was expecting him to grab mount her the way they usually do, but unfortunately Chris was dead in that aspect. And she, in her text message to Nicole, she stated that was off, and that could only mean that he was getting it from somewhere else. Okay, 5.5 weeks is a long time to be away from someone. All right, so Nicole also, or rather Shanann also mentioned in her text message that she had even tried one night to try to ignite his fire after putting the kids away. Oh god, this is why it's so difficult. I hate blending. Blending is like the most difficult. No, it's not the most difficult part, but it takes my time. So yeah, she said, Shanann said there was a particular night she decided, to try to ignite that fire that had, burned out between them. So after putting the kids off to bed, what she went ahead to do was, shower and, lie sexy in bed, waiting for Mr. Chris. Now, according to her, in her text message to Nicole, she said Chris knows that whenever she showers for the night, whenever she does that particular routine, that he knows that she wants sex. She said she knows this, or he knows this rather, but that particular night, he came into the room and just laid down for bed, like he didn't even touch her. And obviously this upsets Shanann, that she couldn't take it again. She had to, mount on him, and that was where she, decided to go haywire. Okay, who are you with? Who is she? And Chris just, sent her off saying, oh, not tonight, that I need to sleep, let's not do this tonight, in a cool tone anyway. And yeah, they went to bed without, yeah. So in her text message, in Shannon's text message to Nico, Shanann indicated how furious she was at the fact that, Mr. Chris didn't touch her that night, and that only meant that he was getting it from someone else, especially because it had been 5 something weeks since they had been together, and they are always, going at it whenever they stay, that long from each other, but like it wasn't the same vibe. So that only that brought to her that he probably might have been getting it from someone else. And yeah, she indicated this in the message, but Nicole told her not to think in that direction. Nicole told her just brush it off, it's nothing, he probably is just tired. And yeah, that's that. Okay, now back to Chris and the polygraph, tests. The interviewers finally returned, and after taking their seats judiciously, beside Chris, the female interviewer told Chris that, you know what, we've gone through your polygraph test result, and it comes out that you have not been completely honest with us. Now, in Chris's defense, he said that he had been completely truthful. He has told them that all the questions that they asked of him, he answered truthfully. So he doesn't know what else they want him to say. And she was like, the lady interviewer was like, how come since you sat down here, you only shed a tear when you were explaining that you don't know anything about your wife's whereabouts, but you never shed a tear for your babies. Don't you miss your babies as well? He was like, he misses his babies, that he doesn't know what to do, the interviewer shouldn't judge him, from that perspective, that he doesn't know what to do, that he's confused, that he wishes they will come back, that he doesn't know, And the female interviewer was like, Chris, where is your wife and kids? Where are they? Chris said, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what you want me to say. I've told you, I don't know where they are, Okay. Everybody was waiting for an answer, I too was anticipating Chris's answer, because, everything was starting to look very, very confusing, everything was really starting to look very, very confused, very suspicious, like if you ask me. He said, okay, that he asked for his dad. His dad has flown across the country to be here with him, that he wants to talk to his father, okay? And the interviewers were like, okay, the male interviewer actually was like, okay, fine. We're going to allow you to talk to your father only on one condition, which is that you will be truthful with him. You tell him what you are unable to tell us, okay? And Chris was like, okay, fine, I'll tell him. I just want to talk to my father, okay? And yeah, they left Chris to be with his father. Now Chris's father comes in, sits beside him. You know, Chris's father, Ronnie, by name Ronnie Watts, sits beside Chris and is, you know, trying to be a father, you know. Hey son, what's going on? You know, what's happening? What's going on? What's happening? Tell me what's happening, you know? And Chris is like, he's scared, you know? He's scared that, you know, the polygraph lady walked up to him and told him that he failed his polygraph test, that he's scared that, you know, they're not going to allow him go because his polygraph test is faulty, you know. And he was like, okay, the father was like, okay, is there anything you need to tell me? Is there anything I need to know? You know, where is Shanann? Where are your kids? And that's when Chris opens up and says that, and starts crying, actually. If you ask me, fake tears. And starts crying that, oh, he had to do it. You had to do what? His father asks him, what do you mean by you had to do it? What did you have to do? And it's at this point Chris tells his father that he killed Shanann. His father was like, you killed your wife? How did you kill her? And that's when he opens and tells his father as well that he choked her to death. He said, Chris said, Shanann, he came in and found his kids dead. That Shanann had choked his kids to death. And he didn't know when, you know, he was filled with rage and, you know, reciprocated, did the same thing to her. Okay. The father was like, oh my God, you know, very shocked at the news his son just broke to him. He said, what do you mean by Shanann killed the kids? He said they had a misunderstanding, and, you know, Shanann took it out on the kids, which, you know, which triggered him to do the same thing to Shanann. Wow. Okay, Chris. What a way to reciprocate, you know? Okay, meanwhile, when Chris was telling his father this, obviously, you know, this is an investigation room. There's nothing you'd say here that wouldn't be heard everywhere, okay? So the investigators heard overheard what he said and came in, and they asked him to be, more detailed with what happened. He seemed he wasn't really, really opening up to the investigators, right? Because they asked him, what happened. He told them actually that, after he had broke the news of the separation to Shanann, she lashed out on the kids, and he lashed out on her as well. All right, so they asked him where he buried their bodies. Okay, they kept trying to get closure actually on like the full details, and he kept saying that he retaliated, that it was rage that caused him to do what he did, that he did what he did out of anger, right? Because Shanann had killed his babies, right? She had choked them to death, so he strangled her. So they asked him where the kids were buried. He didn't really seem to be saying much. So they asked him if he needed some space to talk to his father, and he said yes. So they walked out again. They let him be. They gave him that space that he requested for. After they walked out, his father asked where Shanann was, and he told his father that he buried Shanann. Bro, how do you even have the mind to kill someone and still bury them? Like, bro, man, this world is full of straight as weird ass people, if you ask me. He said he buried Shanann, and the father also asked where his kids were, and he told his father that his kids were out of reach. His father asked him what he meant by, his kids were, like, they were gone. Like, what did he mean by they were gone? And that was when he told his father that, okay, mind you, I forgot to mention this. I earlier did mention that Chris Watts was an operator who worked, in an oil and gas company, rather. Yeah, I mentioned that. Now, he had this site he always visited for work, which was called Sevi 319, right? And this was like an open field with two very massive oil tank cylinders, and then one half tank is like a cylinder, but it's like a half tank of it, right? Now, according to his description, he said that all three of them, or all three bodies, could be located in that site. He told his father that he buried Shanann and he dumped the bodies of his two daughters in the open tank. That was why he said the bodies were out of reach. Now, this tank was filled with oil, crude oil, if you ask me. So, like, bro, like, what sort of a father does that? Okay, moving on. Right? Really, like, when I'm still trying to bring myself to terms with this story, because it's very upsetting. Like, it's really, really upsetting. Okay, so he told his father, Ronnie Watts, that he buried Shanann, somewhere, in the site, and he dumped the bodies of his two daughters in the cylinders. How can you be so wicked? Okay, 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 okay. All right. So the investigators came back, or the interrogators rather, came back, and they had a picture of his sites um on a tab, and they asked him to point the locations of where the bodies could be found. Now, in that picture, there was a white sheet, right? Not too far from something that looked like, a newly dug heap, right? He pointed at that location, saying that was where his wife Shanann was buried. And then he pointed at the other cylinders, saying that was where they could find his baby's bodies. Okay. Okay, Chris. What a way to go. What a way to go, Chris. I'm so shook. Anyway, moving on. So, intel was immediately passed. The police men went there immediately to retrieve the bodies, and just as Chris had pointed out, they found where each of those bodies were buried, and they were dug. Shannon's body was retrieved, as well as the baby's bodies from the cylinders, right? Now, back at the interrogation room, the male interrogator could not really like make out so much sense in what Chris Watts had said, pertaining to Shanann strangling her babies, because everybody knew that Shanann loved her kids. Everybody knew it. Her fans knew it, and based on her vlogs, because she was the kind of person who always put out videos on her family. So a whole lot was said, actually, because in fact, when the message newly got out that Shannon's body was retrieved, as well as the baby's bodies, a whole lot of people had so much to say about that, because in fact, they started tagging Shanann as a narcissist, because of this is someone that would show us videos of how happy she is with her family, and for her to still go behind to kill her kids, it wasn't really adding up. Some disoriented people, if you ask me, believed that Chris was actually innocent and Shanann was a narcissist. Because if you ask me, this is Chris. I wouldn't blame them if you ask me, because Chris was very good at fooling people. This is somebody that, bro, how long can you pretend? This is somebody that was, extremely quiet, someone that never, in any record, did he in any way even verbally abuse his wife. They've been together how many years? Like 7-8 years, right? Or I think, right? And there was no record of any domestic violence whatsoever, or even verbal abuse. Even his text messages, you need to have read Chris's text messages to Shanann. They were extremely polite. Like, if you had read his messages, you would think, you would pray for such a man. I'm telling you, things, it wasn't just adding up. Like you say, Shanann killed her babies, but a lot of people knew Shanann to be a lover of her family. So why would she go ahead to do that, right? Why? So the interrogator actually made it clear. He was like, he made it clear to Chris. He was like, it's things are not adding up. He said, what he thinks, which is also the same thing I thought, was, or is rather, that Chris had found a new life that he wanted so badly that he had to take out his old one to have that new life of his, which, if you ask me, is exactly what it was. Because I mean, this is someone that has been with Shanann for how many years? For so long. And all of a sudden you kill your family. I mean, what even happened to a divorce? Like, what happened to, you had already told her that, according to you had already told her that, you were itching or you were ready to have a separation. So anyway, I think I'm delving too deep. So as I was saying, because he said Shanann killed the babies, right? And he killed Shanann out of retaliation. Fine. So the interrogator said, you know what? That story doesn't add up to me. You know what I think? I think that you had to get rid of your old life, so you can have your new one. And Chris kept saying no, that that he didn't mean to cheat on Shanann, but when he met Nicole, that is this other Nicole, that he started feeling butterfly feelings he had never felt in a very long time, feelings he never thought he would ever have again, right? And that was what motivated him to do what he did, right? So that was what motivated him rather to ask for a separation, right? So, and Shanann was not too happy about it, that she decided to take it out on their kids, and he retaliated by strangling her to death. Okay, all right, okay. Now they kept asking, the interrogators asked Chris to be, let's come clean, like be 100%, be sincere, be 100% sincere. You don't need to. And he said no, that is what happened, that he cannot kill his babies, that he loved his babies. All right. So he was detained and set to have a court hearing based on the findings so far, right? Now, meanwhile, while we're still waiting for the court hearing and all of that, right? Interrogation was still going on. And this one was between, a police officer and Nicole, which was Shannon's best friend this time around, not Chris's girlfriend. This was Nicole Atkinson. Now, Nicole said that amongst the several text messages that were exchanged between her and Shanann had indicated her, unhappiness towards a finding of hers, a recent finding of hers, which was that, on one of those days when she had traveled, I think, for a company training, and, leaving Chris home with the kids, Chris said that he had hired a babysitter to look after the kids, right? And he had told Nicole that he was going for a ball game, something like that, right? Now, according to Shanann, right, in her text message, she said she found out that Chris had used her card to make a payment at a cafe on the said day that he said he was going to be at the ball game. And the total amount that was deducted from her account on that day was $63, which made her wonder what he was paying for, right, at the cafe that was that expensive. So Nicole said when she got back, she first of all checked, when Shanann got back, she first of all checked with her, and they went ahead to Hard Rock Cafe. Sorry, not Hard Rock Cafe. Hard Rock Cafe is in Nigeria. To Lazy Dog Cafe. That was the name of that cafe. The Lazy Dog. Sorry. They went to check, what he probably must have paid for that. That was that freaking expensive. And they found out that even the beers that they had on that menu were not, as expensive as what he had paid for, which made her wonder exactly what, her husband, like, okay, fine, I'm saying that this beer is probably $20. Where did the rest, go? Where did the rest $40 go? And it was at that point that she realized that, oh, okay, it means something fishy is truly going on with my husband, right? This is according to Nicole anyway. So yeah, Chris was questioned about this, and he said that okay, no, he wasn't questioned in particular about this. It was when he was giving his own statement that he said that he knew that at some point that Shanann was going to discover that he cheated, especially because he used her card, and that was like him saying, or that was like him doing something bad, and not really or not necessarily covering his tracks. You get? Because if you're going to cheat, why would you use your wife's card to cheat? Like, that's a dumbass move, especially when she knows where you are supposed to be. It's not like you paid for something at church, or you paid for something in a library. It was a bar or a cafe, and you were supposed to be at a ball game according to you. So he was like, yeah, that he expected to be caught, because that was a dumbass move. So yeah, he said the night after she returned from her company training, he was already on the bed, and he felt her come over to the bed as well. She had climbed in, and she felt him touch on him, and as the body moves, or as the body would lead, they had sex that night, right? Bro, this story keeps getting more interesting. Like, you had sex with the person you know what, let me just okay. No, I'm gonna say you have sex with the person you're gonna kill the next day. Like, who does that? This is not funny. This is actually very serious. But like, this guy must have been seriously mentally disoriented, if you ask me, because all these don't even add up for someone who is stable mentally. Like, serious, the way these people think, I will never and can never understand. All right, so oh yeah, they did what they did, and the next morning, he said, according to Chris, the next morning he woke up, and that was when he broke the news to Shanann, saying that, he was getting a separation. Oh, rewinding back to Miss Nico, whatever her name is, the one who isn't Shannon's best friend. She said that when she was making her statement, she said that, she knew that Chris had a family, a wife and 2 kids, but he never told her that she was also 14 or 15 weeks pregnant. Oh yeah, she was. 3 babies, 2 already baked, 1 in the oven. She said it was, and she said that he kept telling her that, he was working on a separation from her, right? And she didn't know about the, baking baby. It was through social media that she got to know. Oh, so now my question to this Miss Nicole is, so you even knew this woman down to her social media, and you were still going ahead messing around with her husband? Could you not at least wait for the separation to be fully processed before you jump in and mess shit up? Okay, I'm just gonna mind my business. Okay, she said that. Anyway, now fast forwarding back to where I was. Mr. Chris said, yeah, so he woke up the next morning and he told her that, yeah, I'm ready for a separation, and Shanann didn't really take it too lightly. Now, mind you, this confession he's making is 3 months after his detainment. Was it? Okay, my source didn't really say, but it seemed like it was 3 months after his detainment, or towards, and 3 months after was when he was supposed to have his court hearing. So it was somewhere in between that time that he finally made this statement. All this while he kept blaming Shanann for killing his babies. All this while, it was towards the tail end that he finally confessed. This was exactly what he said in his statement. Okay, that he woke up the next morning, right? And that was when he finally broke it down to Shanann that, okay, you know what, I'm done with you. I have a new boo and I want to move on. Okay, and Shanann did not take it too lightly. Okay, Shanann got mad, and that was when she threatened that he would not see his kids again, and told him to get off her. Yeah, and it was in that very moment that Mr. Chris Watts decided to strangle Shanann. Yes, he did. So he strangled Shanann, and while at it, was it Cece or Bella? One of them, I think it was Cece. Was it Cece or Bella? I think it was Cece. Cece came in, or Bella came in. One of them, anyway. One of the daughters came in and asked why their mother was, because the mother, as at that time, was dead, lying face down on the bed. And she came in and asked why the mother was lying in that state, and he just told them, mommy is fine, right? And it was at that point in time he packed all three of them into his truck. He placed them at the back of his truck, placed his dead wife on the floor, wrapped her in the sheets, right? The white sheets that, remember, they had seen in that picture that the interrogator showed to him of his sight. He wrapped her deceased body in the sheets, placed her on the floor of the back in his truck, right? And the two girls at the back as well. Now the interrogators asked him if the daughters didn't ask why he placed his wife on the floor, and he was like, yes, they did ask. And he told them that, mommy is okay, she's just taking a nap on the truck floor, Okay, so he drove. That was when he drove, out of the garage with his truck and took them to his work site. Now, according to him, he said the distance from his house to his site was like roughly 45 minutes, 1 hour. And he said that was a long time for him to have probably reconsidered everything, but he doesn't know why he still went ahead to do. Yeah, we don't know why you still went ahead to do. You wanted a new. Yeah, that's why you did it. Anyway, so he got to his site, and that was where he strangled. He said he started with Sissy. Sissy that's Celeste Watts is the oldest. He started with her, strangled her to death, or choked her to death with her blanket. Oh yeah, he took them with the blanket from the house, strangled Celeste with a blanket. And when he was done with Celeste, you next, Bella. He did it, the same thing to Bella. Yeah, when he was done, he buried Shanann and threw the bodies of my beautiful girls in the tank. Yeah, with all the lights, he did it. Yeah, so this was the statement he made to the police on, his confession, finally stating that it wasn't Shanann that killed his babies, that he was the one who actually went ahead to kill his babies. So that makes, 3 persons killed by one man, a whole family killed by one man. All for what, if you ask me? For what? All for freaking what? Okay. Three months later, guys, time for finally the judgments, the court hearing and the final verdict. Chris Watts' final verdict. Whew. I feel like they did not just give him the right verdict. I feel like this man legit deserved, death, if you ask me. But yeah, I think there was a first court hearing that was held for Chris Watts, and that was where they stated that was where Michael Rock of Weld County District Attorney stated, his 9 counts, his 9 count charges, and those were, first degree murder to Shanann, Bella, Cece, right? Nico, which was his unborn child. Like, that one really hurts me. That they stated it as unlawful termination of pregnancy of, Nico Watts. Really, that one hurts me big time. And then 3 counts of unlawful tampering with a human deceased body. Yeah, those were his counts. Now, the first hearing that was held for Chris Watts, they definitely, I think the statement that was made was, he deserves death. I think something like that. I'm not using the right words though, but like, I know death was mentioned, but he was like, it is not in his power to sentence anyone to death, or give any judge, or I don't know, you know what I mean anyway. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how he put it, but he said something like that. So yeah, it was the second court hearing that they finally decided he would get a life sentence. And if you ask me, I was really pained. I was really pained because that man deserved death. I mean, I know I'm not God, but come on. You killed 3 people based on lust, L-U-S-T, man. Nothing serious, just lust. Like, you took 3 lives. 4. Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico. Like, why? And if you ask me, I feel like Nicole, whatever her name is, not the best friend, the so-called girlfriend, I feel like her life was saved, because if he could do that to Shanann, there is no guarantee that he will not do the same to you. So yeah, I feel like you dodged the bullet there, and you should be grateful. And you see why, ladies? I just feel like, you should be quite careful, who you let into your life, because not everyone is sensible, not everyone is. Oh God, I've tampered with something. Yeah, I definitely did tamper with something. So I feel like you should be very careful with who you let into your life, because there are a whole lot of strange ass men, like a whole lot of them. Like, you need to be very careful. Like, not everybody that walks the street with you is normal. Not every man that seems normal is normal. Okay? Not every man that acts like a gentleman is a gentleman. Okay? So yeah, I feel like this is a lesson, really. And trust me, I learned. I really did learn. Because this shit right here was definitely very horrific. Like, very, very. Yeah. Hi guys, so that was the story of Shanann Watts and her 2 beautiful kids. It is really painful, like the whole story, the way it turned out. Like, for you to be married to someone for that long and not even think that would ever happen, only for it to just happen, and all for what? All for another woman. Like, it doesn't even make any sense to me. Like, if you really wanted her that bad, you could have easily just asked for like a divorce, Like, you didn't need to kill her. Rather, you didn't need to like go as far as hurting her or your kids and even your unborn child. Like, okay guys, so that wraps up the story of Shanann Watts. I pray her soul rests in peace alongside those of her beautiful kids. Let's just learn to be very careful, let's just learn to continue making the right decisions, continue taking the right paths, because life is a very, very crazy place with a lot of crazy ass people. Okay, all right, so if you enjoyed this video and you love to see more of this video, please don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, and don't forget to click the notification button as well, because hello, you don't want to miss me when next I come on here. And yeah, if you're wondering what next I'm gonna put out, it definitely will be a beautiful and amazing video. This is Touche Gang, and we are, a coalition of spontaneous human beings. Okay, so if you want to be part of that spontaneity, don't forget to click the notification bell, to subscribe, and click the like button. All right, see you next time. Bye.